There's outrage in Russia following the savage beating of a 7-year-old Russian boy by his American adoptive parents that resulted in his death. The boy had nearly 80 external injuries. The adoptive parents are behind bars in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, about 2 hours west of Philadelphia. Now, this case isn't the first of its kind. RT's Dina Gazovsky is live in the newsroom with the story. Dina?
Hi there, Priya. Well, really just a tragic case as we get more and more details about what really caused the death of this 7-year-old boy. Now, his parents, 54-year-old Nanette L. Craver, and also her husband, 45-year-old Michael J. Craver, charged with criminal homicide in the death of their 7-year-old son, who they obviously adopted from Russia. Now, the boy actually died on August 24th, 2009, but I want to take you through the chain of events that led to his parents' arrest. So back in August of 2009, the Cravers took their son to Holy Spirit Hospital in Pennsylvania for head and facial injuries. Now, they were apparently so bad that the boy was then transferred to another hospital where he was put on life support, and after just a few days, his parents decided to terminate the life support, so he, of course, died. But here's the thing. The parents told police that their son was prone to falling down, that he had all kinds of mental issues, but his medical records actually reveal no such thing. Now, the charges are being filed now because the autopsy report was just released last week. It was just finalized last week, and I do want to mention that this is not the first time that something like this has happened, when the adoptive parents say one thing, but the records, the investigations prove something completely different.
And Dina, you mentioned that this wasn't the first time something like this has happened. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit.
You know, Priya, unfortunately, when I talk about this story, I have to use the word another. Another adopted Russian child beaten to death here in the United States. You know, you do your research on this, you literally come up with lists and lists of all these cases. I mean, dating back to February of 1996, where you have children beaten to death, massive head injuries. And a lot of times these parents, including this case, say, hey, you know, they just hit their head, or they had these kinds of issues in the past, which obviously is not the case, because then later the parents are found guilty of inflicting these crimes on their children. And that, of course, creates a lot of tension between Russia and the United States. In this case, when Russia starts questioning, look, are these adoptions really a good thing if this seems to be happening time and again? But I do also want to mention, Priya, that adoptions have become more and more controversial over the years in all parts of the world. I mean, you have cases in Latin America where these babies have parents, and yet the adoption agencies say that they're orphans, and they end up making money off of the adoption process.
So, Dina, is anything being done as far as the vetting process after revelations of yet another case of abuse?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because in response to this little boy's death, a Russian senator has actually forwarded a proposal to introduce a temporary moratorium on American parents adopting Russian orphans. That is according to RIA Novosti. Officials feel that this is serious enough that this situation really needs to be discussed with the U.S. State Department. And for the time being, you know, until something is done, they don't think that any Russian children should be adopted by American couples, at least not yet. And the real question here is, where is the system of checks and balances? Why isn't this working out where people are vetted more seriously? Because you do have so many of these bizarre cases, and people are wondering, how are they able to get away with this?
And you know, Dina, you also mentioned relations between Russia and the United States. What can we expect to happen in light of this case?
Well, we can expect there to be more and more tension. You know, international adoption obviously has a lot of repercussions for the countries involved, especially when something like this happens, when you have Russian children in the hands of American parents who are being so severely mistreated, to say the least. And, you know, in this case, Russia is saying to the United States, look, you can't really bring up the issue of human rights abuses because you have to clean up your own house, so to speak. You know, but in the midst of the blame game and the finger pointing, these are children involved, and they're truly the ones who are suffering because of this. And of course, both countries obviously want something to change.
As Dina Gazovsky reporting on this tragic case. Interesting to see how Russia is taking those major steps to prevent this from happening again.